Welcome into the latest episode of the 5 Reasons Podcast. I'm Ethan Skolnick here, as always, with Chris Winningham. Now that you've found us, make sure you hit the subscribe or follow button on your favorite podcast provider. That way you'll get all of our old episodes, as well as all of our new episodes as soon as they post. This is, as we always do, 3 per week here on the flagship. This is number 3, so make sure you check out the other 2. Nikias Duncan, myself, and Greg Sylvander did a podcast from Charlotte where we're covering the All-Star game. We actually have 2 in the can from there. Check that out, the 5 things we want to see from the Heat the rest of the season. We did agree on a lot of it, actually, and I think it agrees with most fans. I'm not sure it agrees with Pat Riley, but we'll see what the Heat decide to do over the last 20-plus games. Also, check out an NFL podcast, Dolphins podcast, Chris and I did yesterday on the Dolphins and what tanking would actually look like for them. Also, check out the other podcasts in our network. New episodes today of Miami Heat Beat with the voice of the Heat, Mike Biamonte, 3 yards per carry, where they're breaking down everything that's going on with the Dolphins and also the others. We have our new website that's coming here in next 2 to 3 weeks, we hope. And we do think that that's going to be something that our listeners are going to enjoy, where it's a one-stop shop for South Florida sports. But now we want to bring on a longtime friend in the business, one of the best NBA writers in the country. He's been a little bit all over the place the past few years, Washington Post, Yahoo. Now he's at The Athletic. We love to have guests from The Athletic on. We kind of have a really good working relationship with them. And it's Michael Lee, or as he goes by, Mr. Michael Lee, still based in the Mid-Atlantic area, and is going to be at the Heat and Sixers on Thursday night. So we thought this would be a great place to open the second half. Mike, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
Now, you've written some pieces about Dwyane over the years. We just devoted basically 4 days to Dwyane because he was the only thing Heat-related to cover in Charlotte, other than the guy who follows us on 5 Reasons Sports, who won the Papa Shot contest with the help of Shaq, which was pretty cool. The Heat actually, that's probably the closest the Heat will get to a championship for the next 10 plus years, to win the Papa Shot at halftime of the All-Star game. But otherwise it was Dwyane, it was all Dwyane all the time. I thought that he looked about as happy as I've seen him, actually. He's gone through some periods that people forget about that were pretty dark for him, but I feel like he's in a really good space. I gave him the opportunity a couple of times to sort of say that he wants to come back, and he doesn't want to come back. I think he's pretty comfortable with how things have played out. He's had this farewell tour that he said he never wanted, that he seems to be enjoying the hell out of. But you've talked to Dwyane over the years. Is this, in your view, the right ending for him?
Yeah, I believe it is. And I think that, over the weekend, when they had the ceremony for him before the All-Star weekend kicked off, with Carmelo and Chris Paul were speaking about him, I think he was probably done last year. I think he probably was like, I can end it here and I'll be good. But I guess Carmelo said he convinced him to come back for one more year to go out the right way. And the one thing I've always noticed or observed is that whenever a guy says he's retired or this is going to be his last year, he's already done. Like, he's already mentally checked out in terms of like that really having that competitive thing where you just are just miserable with each loss and, bad games like really set you down. I think right now he's just sort of enjoying the last run. I remember when Kobe Bryant, announced his retirement during the season with the Lakers. And I remember he was really struggling that year. He was having some really poor shooting nights. He was in such a good mood. Like, he was never really grumpy or angry about anything. He accepted the fact that he played with a bunch of clowns and just accepted the Lakers are going to be awful. And I think that when you reach that place, when you know that you have nothing more to prove and that, this is the gravy, you already got the mashed potato part of your career over with. I think that's kind of what's happening with Dwyane. He knows that he's not winning a championship. He knows that he doesn't have to chase a ring. I think, going to Cleveland last year, the opportunity to try to play for something, play with LeBron one last time. I think all that stuff just kind of, that became less important for him. And I think now it's about leaving a legacy, leaving a mark on the game, leaving a mark on the Heat, leaving an impression on the players that are going to be coming up behind him, those who play for the Heat, those around the league who look up to him and admire him. So I think that, and I talked to him just last month just about what all this means, and he was just really great just in terms of just how he really understands his impact and the influence that he had, because guys are willingly telling him these things. Bradley Beal, told him that he was his idol, and he's the reason why he wears number 3. And, all these things are kind of coming up now, and guys probably feel more open and free to say these things because they don't view him necessarily as a competitor, but just sort of as like a hero who's going away.
I wanted to ask you though about the idea of players that have difficulty towards the end of their career with, you mentioned that motivation thing, but to me, and Dwyane, has had good performances, and he'll still say after the game, I'm ready to go because my body is the reason why, and that he still has something to give to the game, whereas other players are kind of phased out because teams don't want them. I think the Heat would more than welcome him back. I think other teams might even bring him in, but he just doesn't want to do that on a nightly basis. As someone who has been around those guys and has seen what those difficulties can be like, can you explain to the lay folk why NBA players don't want to go through the days in between and the rest and recovery that it takes to get on the floor every night?
Once you reach a certain age, it gets harder to get up. It gets harder, and you have to do so much more to get your body ready, in terms of, working out after games and stretching and just your body, just all the stuff that you go in terms of treatment. I mean, that becomes a grind. That becomes a job within itself, just to maintain and having the ability to go out there and compete each day. So, and then you go out there and play, and you feel sore and you're hurt all over again. You got to just keep doing it. I mean, anybody who knows what it's like to be, once you turn 35 or 40, for those who get there, and you wake up one morning and you just got like a Charlie horse for no reason, and you just like, this is what happens when you get old. Imagine being a supreme athlete and all of a sudden just having every knee, foot, every ailment that's ever, held you back at any point in your career, just all of a sudden you start feeling pain there. And that's just sort of what happens. And there's so many things that you kind of want to do on the court that you sort of have to mask because you can't do it the same way anymore. You get tired of just having to overcompensate for some of your deficiencies. And I think, when you reach that point where you're done, I mean, and you know in your mind that you're done, I think that's a big step. They always say that, guys are the last ones, sometimes elite athletes are the last ones to figure out that the game is past them. But I think if you've already in your mind accepted the fact that the game isn't going the way you want anymore, it makes it easier to sort of, check out and look toward the future, because you know that there's so much more to life now than just a game that you dedicated, everything to.
I think, Michael, that most people put Dwyane somewhere in that 3 to 5 range for all-time two guards. I think it kind of depends on where you put what position you put other players, like what position did Jerry West play, for instance. I know Iverson has come up. I used to have this debate. It's funny. Our buddy Shandell and I used to fight about this all the time, about whether Iverson was a 1 or whether he was a 2. I mean, I said he was a 2. He said he was a 1. And
Eric Snow was the 1.
Right.
If he was a 1, then what was Eric Snow? Because he definitely wasn't a 2.
Right. I mean, Eric Snow was the guy who brought the ball up the court and handed it to Iverson. And so Chandel and I used to have this debate. And then somehow one day at practice, we engaged Dwyane and LeBron in the debate. And they didn't agree either. I think Dwyane agreed with me and LeBron agreed with Chandel. So I don't really know where you put Iverson. And frankly, I have Dwyane ahead of Iverson all time. I know some people don't. But I just think from an efficiency standpoint, I don't think it's especially close. But saying that Dwyane is in that space, 3 to 5, somewhere around there, and Clyde Drexler's another one that gets named in there. Who's next at that position? Is because I guess Harden's playing it, right? But again, it's another of those situations when Chris Paul's not there, he's kind of playing the 1. Is Bradley Beal because the next heir? Yeah, because the 2 position has been one of the softer positions in the NBA, actually. Traditionally and also recently. I mean, there are a lot more elite 3s. There are a lot more at this stage elite 4s. Obviously,
elite point guard.
Right. Who's next? Is Beal the next guy? Can he be that kind of player?
It's interesting because I wrote a story about this that ran last week about where Dwyane Wade. His true impact on the game is not just the fact that, he has put up great numbers and won 3 championships in the scoring title. It's that he is the last shooting guard to be the centerpiece of a championship team. And, you got to look at it like this. When you talk about where does he rank all time, I put him right there at 3 because right now, Jerry West was the first NBA Finals MVP. He won in 1969. And we won in a losing effort. And I think most people consider Jerry West as, he's the logo and everything else. But the year that the Lakers finally won a championship, Wilt Chamberlain was the Finals MVP. So from 1969 all the way until 1991, you did not have a single shooting guard as the Finals MVP until you got Michael Jordan. So Michael Jordan went on to win, 6 Finals MVPs over the next 8 years. We know that. So then you have Dwyane Wade is next. Dwyane Wade is the next shooting guard to win Finals MVP after Michael Jordan. And then Kobe Bryant won 2 more after that. So there are only 3 shooting guards in the history of the NBA to be the Finals MVP and be the best player on that team. I mean, there have been other guys. Joe Dumars won. He won, but it was Isaiah Thomas's team. Joe, was what I'm saying. Joe, everyone kind of viewed that as Isaiah Thomas's team, but Dwyane Wade was the centerpiece of that championship team because we know Shaq was fading at that point, and we know how phenomenal he was during that finals run, and especially the last 4 games and the 40-point games and the free throw games and all those crazy moments. So when you look at it from that perspective, it's hard to say that anybody, Iverson or anybody else, ranks ahead of him. When you add the fact that he won 2 more championships with LeBron, obviously LeBron was the better player than that, but that's still, I mean, you look at his resume, you can say somebody scored more, did more, but look what he did on the biggest stage in a championship round. There's only 3 guys that can take that claim. So to answer your next question as who's next, I don't know if there is somebody who's next because I actually asked Dwyane about that, and I asked him why there hasn't been another shooting guard who is sort of on that level in terms of being the leader of a championship team. And he said, well, basically it comes down to who is the best player in the game, and whoever the best player in the game is, that becomes the power position. And you can kind of go through the history of the NBA from big men, from Mikan to Russell to Chamberlain to Abdul-Jabbar. The best player is a big man, Shaq, Duncan, Elijah Wan, you name all these great big men, and that's really what you needed. You need to have an elite big man to win a championship. And MJ kind of sort of shifted that to then when MJ was the best, you had an era where shooting guard was sort of seen as the glamour position. You had so many guys from Drexler to Reggie Miller. And then, when Jordan retired, that position was still elite because you had Iverson and Kobe and Vince Carter and Tracy McGrady. And, so you had all these great players, Ray Allen, at that position. But it sort of faded once the rules changed in 2004 and Dwyane Wade sort of stepped in there and he became that guy who took advantage of being a combo guard, because, his rookie year, he was basically the point guard on that squad with Eddie Jones and Lamar Odom and Karan, and they wanted to have the best players on the floor, and that meant that Wade sort of had to be the facilitator. So he came in the league playing that role, and then just when they got rid of hand check and pick and roll became the thing, that was right in his wheelhouse. And he took advantage of it, and now you can sort of see the evolution of the shooting guard position, where it's not just a guy who you feed, who just hits shots, but he's actually a guy who's making plays for others and doing everything. And Wade sort of is the face of this new modern player that we see now with James Harden, a guy who sort of goes against just whatever traditional definition of a shooting guard is. But everybody kind of has to fit that role to be an effective shooting guard now, unless you're Klay Thompson and you're fortunate enough to play with Steph Curry, who's a point guard, but is kind of a shooting guard. But he happens to have some good playmaking ability. But just with the way that game has evolved, I don't know if there is anybody. And he made a great point to me. There's nobody for him to pass the baton to, but it wasn't like anybody gave it to him. He said, when I showed up, Iverson wasn't giving me anything, Kobe wasn't giving me anything. I had to come and take it. And that's sort of what's happening now. Like James Harden is the MVP, and he plays shooting guard, but we've seen him in the postseason kind of flame out, especially the longer the series goes, the longer the run goes for the Rockets. So then there are other guys who may be in line, say Devin Booker or Donovan Mitchell or Bradley Beal, and those are guys who are coming up. But I don't think any of us are looking at those guys right now, and maybe it changes, but looking at those guys right now as being the best player in the game. And that's really what it takes to win a championship, is having the best player in the game on your side.
Want to introduce you to another great sponsor of the 5 Reasons Sports Network, and that is Brunt Insurance, where you can get all of your protection under one roof. They offer home, auto, commercial, and life insurance. They're licensed to write insurance for the entire state of Florida. That's Pensacola all the way down to the Keys. They've got multiple carriers for all the product lines to ensure you're paying the lowest rate in your area. I can speak to this personally because I reached out to Greg Brunt. He told me, he said, send me all of your insurance policies. So I sent him life, I sent him auto, I sent him condo, I sent him house. He looked at all of them and he says, this one you're doing okay. Let's leave this one alone. On 2 of the policies, though, he saved me more than $700, and that's just for this 6-month term. So Greg can look at all your policies. He can find the right insurance company that will work for you, the right carrier, and he will get it done for you quickly, and you'll get your money quickly. Also, he's a proud sponsor of the Home for Heroes program, which offers special discounts for first responders, teachers, military, and healthcare professionals. Takes that very seriously. Call Greg at 954-589-2204. That's 954-589-2204, or go to bruntinsurance.com. That's an amazing stat about the no two guard, and I do think that we think of two guards as more elite just because Jordan was, like you said, the best player in the league for more than a decade, and so it became a glamour position. But even during Jordan's day, I mean, there really weren't a lot of guys who were close to measuring up to him. I mean, there was some talk for a couple of years that I remember that Drexler was as good as him. That was a conversation.
Yeah, Mitch Richmond
Mitch Richmond, and then Reggie. But Reggie was dynamic in big moments. But Reggie, as an all-around player, was nowhere near Michael. But he got grouped in because he was always an all-star. He was there at the all-star game, and he beat the Knicks, and so that got a lot of attention. But I mean, Reggie Miller was, where he ranks, and even in two guards, is probably somewhere close to 8, 9, 10, and he was never considered the best player in the league. I want to transition a little bit off of this then, because as we're talking about the Heat and what they can do this year, as you acknowledged and we acknowledge, I mean, the Heat are not winning a championship. They're probably not winning a first-round series. It's almost certain they're not going to win a first-round series. They might not make the playoffs. There are some in our network who think it's better if they don't. I mean, that they don't make the playoffs and that Dwyane doesn't have another moment, but at least you move up 4 or 5 picks potentially in the lottery standings. But let's look at the Eastern Conference now as you see it, because it's very different than we've seen in past years, where it was basically LeBron and then whatever pretender was challenging him, right? So Indiana or Toronto or whatever team was going to fade. Anybody. Washington talking a lot of smack. I mean, there was always some team out there that you thought, okay, maybe they could push LeBron, and then then he would sweep them, and that would be the end of it. Well, LeBron's gone, but the top 4 in the conference are stronger than I can ever remember. So what are you as we 5? Are you gonna count Indiana in this?
I mean, they're third right now.
Yeah, but without Victor, I don't know. I know the way they responded before the break.
They've been playing really well. Without Victor. I mean, the one thing, I don't think they're going to be there as a top 4 team in the end. But I think people have really overlooked the job that Nate McMillan is doing, the job that he's done, because we saying, they don't have Victor Oladipo, they have no chance. But I remember when they traded for Victor Oladipo, and everybody was like, what a horrible deal. This is not going to work out. And then all of a sudden he became an all-star, and now we're like, oh, he's great. And I think a lot of that is because, the scheme they have, the system that they have, it's good. Like, Nate McMillan has really come around as a coach. I think this is one of his better coaching jobs this year. And the fact that they haven't completely collapsed, since Victor went down, I think it's a credit to him and just what they're building and the leadership they have with Thad Young and those guys. And I think that they're overlooked. But I mean, I get your point. So we can talk about the other 4 teams. I just know that Indiana's there, and they have not fallen. And it's been a couple of weeks since Victor went down.
No question. And we see sometimes that the team's best player goes out, the Ewing theory and everything else, and other guys step up. But I don't think even you're.
But we know there are 4 teams that we focus on, and those should be the 4 teams we discussed. So we can go there.
All right. So right now, those, you can throw Indiana if you want, but right now those 4 teams, which is the one that you think is? Let's start this way. Best positioned to kind of grab that number 1 seed, at this stage, I guess it'd be Toronto or Milwaukee, but then best position to actually do something significant in the playoffs.
Yeah. I think that Milwaukee, the way they've been playing all year, I think they have a good chance of coming away with the number 1 seed. I think that Toronto's right there, and they've had a wonderful season. They might be able to catch them after making this Marc Gasol trade, which was a big move. But I like what Milwaukee did in adding Nikola Mirotic, and I think they have a chance to come away with the number 1 seed. And I think the team that I still think is going to come out of the East is Boston. I know they've been really up and down all year, and their chemistry's been off, and they haven't been able to figure out how to get things going with all those guys who played well in the conference finals last year and expected bigger roles, but had to take a step back once Kyrie and Gordon Hayward came back. I still feel like they just have the most overwhelming collection of talent in the postseason. It's going to be really difficult to beat them 4 times because they have so many guys that can step up and have a moment in the postseason. And it's going to be hard to really prepare for if it's going to be Jason Tatum this night or Hayward this night or even a Jaylen Brown, once you get past, Kyrie Irving as sort of their best player. And Al Horford just has a way of always showing up in the big moments. And I think that he'll probably do it again this postseason. I think as an NBA fan, seeing the Celtics playing the Warriors in the finals would be a treat, just because talent-wise, that it's going to be a pretty fun matchup. But I think those are the 2 teams. I think Milwaukee takes the regular season East, and the Celtics have the talent to take the whole conference when it gets down to it. But, again, Toronto and Philly are going to make it hard too. So I can't think of a season where there's 4 teams in the East that I'm really excited about and that I'd be cool with any of them making it to the NBA Finals.
Would you say that after we get past Golden State that they're the next 4 best teams in the league?
Yeah, but I've sort of been feeling that even before the trade deadline when Philly got Tobias Harris and like I said, Toronto got Gasol. Now I just feel like, we always just say that the West is so much stronger, and it is deeper. There's a lot more talented teams and a lot more teams in the hunt in the West, but the teams in the East are really going for it now. And one of the things that always upset me during the last 8 years of LeBron's run is that so many teams were so passive and so not aggressive in terms of trying to build a team to take him down. That hasn't been the case in the West. I think that there were always teams to try to say, okay, we're going to come at the Warriors. We're not just going to give it up. But in the East, it always just seemed to be this concession that, okay, LeBron's here. We got no shot. So we'll just wait till he's gone to really go for it. Now we see all these teams that are going for it. And, if they had gone for it last year, they may have been able to take advantage of a weaker Cavaliers team and already have a finals appearance on their resume. But, this is where we are now. Now that LeBron's gone, so many teams are just loading up because even if they don't win a championship, a finals appearance for any of these 4 teams would just be a huge monumental moment. And maybe not for Boston because they already have, their 17 championships. So that's not a big deal just to get there. They got to get there and win. Let's say for Philadelphia, a team that hasn't been to the finals in 18 years. For Milwaukee, a team that hasn't been to the finals in 45 years, or Toronto, a team that's never been to the finals. Getting there will be something you can tell your fans, and it's going to be a memory they can hold on to forever. So I think it's a good time to load up, and it's going to be really entertaining. It's going to be interesting to see what happens too. Say if Toronto makes a run to the finals, does Kawhi Leonard walk away from that? Does he say, yeah, this is cool and all, but I really want to live in LA because it's too cold here, or and I guess if he's a little walk away from the Spurs, I guess he doesn't really care about walking away from the Raptors, no matter how far they go. But yeah, so it's fun, man. I love it. The only thing I don't like is that the 6, 7, 8 teams are so bad, and that first round is just going to be a slaughter for somebody for at least three of those series. It's just going to make the second round that much more anticipated.
So is there any team, and now that we've basically thrown the Heat to the slaughter because they're one of those 3 teams, most likely, I mean, is there any, Chris and I have bounced this around. We did a whole podcast on it. Essentially, is there any team in the East that Miami could at least push, right? Like maybe Dwyane has a game, maybe Winslow has a breakout performance, maybe you get something from Whiteside this year as opposed to last year. Any of the teams, I mean, I guess Indiana would be the one, but I don't think, I know you think there's a little less gravity pulling on them. I think they're probably going to settle it at 4 or 5, which means that the Heat wouldn't play them.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think they're going to be 4 or 5. I can agree with you on that.
Right. So I guess the other teams, like, do you see any matchup that maybe Miami can at least make interesting?
Not after last year, and I don't think this team is as good as last year's team. The way the Sixers just kind of steamrolled them, except for that one Wade game. I don't know if I think the teams that they'll wind up facing are better than that Sixers team that they got last year, and I don't think they're as good as they were last year. So no, I don't. If they make it to the playoffs, I don't expect it to be that long of a run. Mainly because the teams at the top are just so good right now. Whether if they get Toronto or if they get Milwaukee, I just don't think that they could really challenge them in a 7-game series. Like I said, the top 4 teams, unless you get a 4 or 5 matchup with Indiana, or if Boston, Philly, Indiana, if one of those two teams make first round, that's going to be entertaining. But other than that, those are the top 3 teams. I think it's going to be it's not going to be compelling at all in the first round.
So for me, the most fascinating thing about the NBA is, from a narrative standpoint, there's always going to be more teams that fail and have, narrative fall on top of them rather than the teams that succeed and triumph. So for me, the fascinating thing about the Eastern Conference playoffs is that, to me, Milwaukee, they have a little bit of time, not a ton of time, because Giannis is a free agent in 2 years' time, and most of their team is actually a free agent this year. But you look at, Milwaukee, they're a bit ahead of schedule. They're overachieving. I think generally the feeling is good. They have a new arena, and I don't think if they lose, it would be a catastrophe. It would be a little bit of disappointment, but not catastrophe. But you look at the other 3 teams. Philly just went all in trading for Jimmy Butler and Tobias Harris. Boston, I don't know if the timeline is necessarily urgent, but they're a team that wants to win championships and acquire Anthony Davis and keep Kyrie Irving. Those aren't helped by going out in round 2. And then you have Toronto, a team that has a little bit of a safeguard for the future, but is still a team that wants to impress Kawhi Leonard and keep him. And so, which of those 3 teams do you think would have the biggest catastrophe if they went out in round 2?
Philadelphia.
Yeah.
They all have a lot to lose, but Philly it's even more scary because they went all in, for this season. They sacrificed a lot of talent and draft picks to go after Jimmy Butler and Tobias Harris, who are both free agents. And they really need to maintain their stars. They got to keep them all together, because if they lose them, they really won't have the money to sign a third star. Like if Tobias and Jimmy both leave this summer, they're going to be in a really tough spot, because Joel Embiid's already got his max extension. Ben Simmons is going to be eligible for his, and he's going to make sure that he gets it this summer. He's not waiting till after next year as a restricted free agent. He wants his money right now. And I'm pretty sure Rich Paul's going to make it very clear to the Sixers they better take care of him right now, or we might see some situation similar to Porzingis, where a guy on the rookie deal like, get me out of here. So they're going to have to take care of him. The moment they do, it's going to eat up their cap space. So it's imperative that they make a deep run that convinces Jimmy and Tobias that they should stay there long term. And if they don't, it could really be a real rough summer, because last year they had money and they had the ability to sign free agents. They couldn't get a meeting with Paul George, because he went ahead and signed with Oklahoma City before his free agency started. LeBron sent his agent to talk to them, so they didn't really talk to any marquee free agents. So the fact that they had to trade a lot of their future assets to get all-star caliber players right now, they have a lot to lose if things fall apart. Every team is all different levels, but I think that for the Sixers, they actually have 2 young pieces in under age 25 who they can build around and going forward. But a lot hinges on trying to find that third star, especially when you figure they sacrificed. They gave a Markelle Fultz, former number 1 pick, this year as well. So they've given up a lot of their potential future to make a run this year, more so than any of these other teams. And I think that it could really, really be painful if they don't get out of the second round like last year.
So let's go over to the West then, because now that LeBron's vacated, it creates the opportunity for all of these other teams. But LeBron may vacate the playoffs entirely at this stage. We go into the second half of this. Yeah, we go into the second half of the
just
season.
To say that.
Well, and it wouldn't have been the case if he hadn't missed all this time. They'd probably be 4th or 5th right now. But they are 9th. The Clippers have basically, packed
They're
it
10th now, right? They're 10th behind the Clippers and the Kings.
That's right. I guess my assumption, Michael, is that, okay, you're right. They are 10th. I think, with the Clippers trading Harris and kind of going the direction they're going, again, I would anticipate a little bit of gravity there and that they drop. But they still have to chase down the Kings. And I don't know what to make of that, because we're not used to seeing the Kings in this position, but they have really good young players who, I mean, we've seen them, handle the heat here, which was impressive, just the way that they went about it. And they just, I mean, they're young, they're athletic, they're relatively deep. They made a couple of additions at the deadline. They might be able to get a buyout guy. They have money. Unlike other teams, they actually still have some cap space, which, they may be able to accommodate someone. What do you think of sort of that? How do you handicap that? Because I guess the default is, okay, it's a couple of games. LeBron will make that up. But LeBron's got to stay healthy the rest of the season, and the Lakers have to stay functional. How do you handicap that?
Yeah, I mean, it's really crazy because, LeBron has made the finals every year since 2011. And he hasn't missed the playoffs since 2005. So that is amazing if he's not able to get this team over the hump. And there are a lot of reasons to think that he can't, primarily because that team was really broken by the trade deadline. The fact that everybody was made available for for Anthony Davis, and there's it kind of, when you're a young player, and you, especially in the social media age, and all you consume is, whatever's on Instagram or Twitter, and you keep reading that you might be on the move, that messes up your head. And you could tell that it affected their play, especially that 42-point blowout in Indiana. You could see that, it really affected them. But LeBron is 34. He's not a young guy. And coming back from that groin injury, he hasn't been as smooth as, he probably would have anticipated. He's still putting up monster numbers because he's great. But in terms of having those numbers translate to wins, it's really tough, especially when you lose on the road in Atlanta. It'd be interesting to see what happens, because it's not even just that the players are under pressure. Luke Walton's under pressure because, if they don't make it to the playoffs this year, then he's out of there. And if they don't look impressive in the postseason, he's probably gone either way. So it's going to be interesting to see. I just sort of, by default, to say LeBron's there, they're going to get in. But the Kings are a fun team, and they got great young players. De'Aaron Fox is like one of my favorite guys right now. And then you look at a Buddy Hield, a guy who's really come on strong. It's crazy because 2 years ago, after the DeMarcus Cousins trade, I thought that they were just like, wow, the Kings just don't have a clue. They don't know what they're doing. But now you can look at it and say that the DeMarcus Cousins trade was a great deal for them to sort of have the foundation to go forward with what they have now. They have a lot of young pieces. Marvin Bagley coming off the bench on that squad. They just picked up Harrison Barnes, like you said. And so I feel like they're positioned to really hold on to that. Of course, they've never played meaningful games, but in that same respect, neither have the Lakers outside of, say, LeBron and Rondo. They have the advantage. They have at least two guys who have done it. But it'll be interesting to see, because both teams are going to need young guys to step up and perform under pressure for the first time in their careers. And I'm intrigued to see who comes out on top.
Get back to our episode. I want to introduce you to another great sponsor of the 5 Reasons Sports Network, and that is Berlitz Broward. This is the best place to learn a language in South Florida. I can speak to it personally. My daughter, already fluent in English and Spanish, we decided to introduce her to Mandarin. She's not even 5 years old, and she's already out speaking Mandarin, knows all of the numbers up to 100, and she loves it. She loves to go back because the way that they work with her, the way that they teach her, and they also work with me as a parent with her schedule to make sure that it fits in with everything else she's doing. You can also learn languages as an adult. They teach many different languages there. Again, English, Spanish, Mandarin, Italian, German, right across the board. They teach virtually every language that you can possibly name. Here's the number that you call, 954-743-0077. That's 954-743-0077. Mention that 5 Reasons sent you. They'll take care of you. Never too early to learn a new language.
Hello, friends. This is Josh Appel from Smart Your Territory.
And I'm Mr. Bill 11.
And we are officially on the road to WrestleMania. It is point at the WrestleMania sign season, Bill.
If you need to get to WrestleMania, we can be your Uber drivers on the road to WrestleMania.
I mean, what? You ruined it. You ruined it.
I like it. I think we could make some money doing that.
WrestleMania season is here. Stick with us here on Smart Your Territory, the 5 Reasons Sports Network's Pro Wrestling Podcast.
To me, the interesting thing is how LeBron, kind of the last few years, has been a guy that, I mean, yeah, he pressed to play 82 games last year, but we have seen him at times not necessarily, try as hard as he can every game. I think we can tell what LeBron trying his hardest on both ends of the floor looks like, and he basically reserves it in the NBA Finals. Do you think at any point he or that, or the broader Lakers set up, not that that team has the playoff experience to do this, but basically realizes that, this last month of the year, these last 6 weeks, is basically the NBA Finals, and I'm going to have to ramp it up to that high of a level every single night?
I'm sure LeBron's going to try to spread that message to them, and so is Rondo. Rondo has really been a guy who the young guys have responded to, probably more so even than LeBron. And I'm sure he'll make it clear to them what this is all about right now. And maybe since the trade deadline has passed and they went All-Star weekend, maybe a couple guys went on vacation, they come back and start feeling good. Like, you know what? Things aren't as bad as I thought they were. If I get traded this summer, so be it. I'm gonna go hard and improve my worth, and maybe I can get traded somewhere and get a nice role somewhere else. So maybe that's what they can do. They can pitch that. If you're feeling upset or then just go ahead and take it out on the opposition and just play your hardest. And there might be a reward on the other end. Maybe you stay here. Maybe you go to a better situation where you can really showcase your skills. I think adding Lonzo Ball back healthy will be a big addition for them too. But yeah, they just got to get their guys healthy because, like you said, they were fourth or fifth before LeBron got hurt, and then things kind of fell apart. But there were a lot of things that contributed to that other than the injury. I think one of them was just mainly the chemistry was off. But they got to work on getting that back these last couple weeks.
So one of the guys I always like to talk to you about is Kevin Durant, because I feel like his sort of public persona has changed so dramatically. And yet I know that he's had difficulties with the media over recent years. And I know that you have had a relationship with him. So I just ask, as someone who deals with him regularly, has he changed that much? And I mean, has he changed with you? Has he changed with others in the media? Because I don't remember at the beginning of his career of him being sort of so confrontational about certain things and I guess so sensitive. And yet that is kind of, when people say Kevin Durant now, that's what a lot of people think of. So is he different?
Yeah, he is different. But he has to be. He's a much more in demand talent now. He's much more scrutinized now. Playing at Oklahoma City shielded him from a lot of attention. It shielded him from a lot of negative publicity because, when that sort of happens with a lot of guys, when you're playing in a smaller market and, you seem committed to that place, it sort of makes it easier for you to just, kind of go float under the radar. I think that once he, moved over to Golden State, everything changed, and I think it's sort of a shock to his system that not only did a lot of people disapprove of his decision, but they continue to hold it against him and will never give him credit for what he accomplishes. And, so I think that a lot of times he gets frustrated. He's human. And I think, his main objective, and this is one thing I said from the minute he went to Golden State to like now, the main reason he went there is because he wanted to beat LeBron. He wanted to go to a team where he knew he had the best chance to beat LeBron. And when he looked around the league and saw how every other team was built, he knew that there was not another team that was structured to beat LeBron like Golden State. And he beat LeBron twice. And Finals MVP twice. Outplayed LeBron twice. And it was going to help him, in his mind, get the status is whatever, the best player in the game, whatever that means. And even despite outplaying LeBron, LeBron's still considered the best player in the game. And I know that that's probably eats at him probably more than anything else. So it has been a frustrating time because he feels like he's not getting the props or the respect that his talents warrant, and they would warrant. I asked a question on Twitter the other day, is he underrated or underappreciated? Because I really feel like what he's accomplished right now is really special, but a lot of people just don't want to give him credit because they say, well, he joined a 73-win team. But, again, I think that we just look at just the numbers and we don't actually look at the fact that despite the fact that the Golden State Warriors were winning 73 games that year, they were still recruiting him heavily through Draymond. The players on that team knew that they were going to have to adjust if they were going to maintain this and turn it into a dynasty. And they knew that Kevin Durant was going to be the piece that could put them over the top. So it wasn't just a thing that, Kevin was like, oh, I'm just going to go there. It was also a thing that this team said, hey, we need you. And that meant a lot to him. And that's one of the reasons why he went there, is that it was going to give him opportunity that went beyond just playing basketball. It's going to help him professionally. It's going to help him his business-wise. It's going to help him, grow just from an adult level. I mean, being in the Bay Area as opposed to, Oklahoma City, it's going to open his eyes to different things. And I think he's enjoyed it from that perspective. But from the media and the fan perspective, where no matter what he does, it seems like he can't escape, being under somebody's shadow, whether it's LeBron's shadow as the best player of the game or even now Steph's shadow as being the engine of that team. I know it's been kind of frustrating for him.
And when we look at the broader league landscape, and certainly Anthony Davis fits into this. Now, sometimes the players invited upon themselves, as Paul George has and Anthony Davis has, by publicly demanding a trade. But do you think that this league moving in the direction of any time a player has his contract running down or is getting close, or and then the media buzz starts and we're talking about it again and again about a player's impending free agency or trade options? Do you think that the league, now it's 18 months away from the expiring of your contract, this is ultimately a good thing? Obviously it generates interest, but I mean, from a player's point of view, it has to get annoying that anytime your contract is running down, the questions will begin.
Yeah, I think that's sort of where we are now. We're in a place where the rumors and the gossip is what drives interest in the league. It's what has the fans buzzing. It has people talking. Everyone's excited, because you have this fantasy or this dream of this superstar player maybe playing for your team. And it keeps, Lakers fans, Knicks fans, all these teams who are kind of that stink. It keeps their hopes alive that maybe there's some savior coming to rescue them. So I think that's just part of the deal right now, and it's going to keep being that way until there's a shift. Maybe guys just say, you know what, I'm gonna stick it out. I'm gonna ride it out. I'm not gonna be a super team chaser. I'm gonna be a guy who wants to make it work where I am. Maybe the backlash, the resentment that some guys face will drive guys to stay. You look at, like I said, Durant, leaving. I'm not saying he needed to stay in Oklahoma City, but the fact that it wasn't well received, and it still hasn't been well received. Anthony Davis, if he goes to the Lakers or anywhere else, if he maintains a role as a villain, which is one he's uncomfortable with, maybe guys will look at that and say, I don't really want to go through that. And plus, I'll still get paid a lot of money to stay. I don't really want that smoke. I want to deal with just this and try to make it work here and live a good life. And I think that's sort of, it may eventually shift. Or if you have a situation like Giannis Antetokounmpo, who has been adamant that he wants to stay in Milwaukee and make it work in Milwaukee. If you see a guy like him, stay in Milwaukee, going on to his next contract, and just says, I'm committed here, that more guys may see that, the positive reception that a guy like Giannis gets for sticking it out with his original franchise. It may be a better alternative than just becoming a villain for chasing a ring.
Last one here from Michael Lee, and the big question. I know you're picking Indiana for this, but I'll let you. I'll let you give the answer. So real quick here, rapid fire, because Chris and I are still sorting this out. Although I'm sort of Golden State until I see otherwise. But give me a champion and give me an MVP.
Champion Golden State, MVP Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Okay, well that's
fair enough.
Would you give? Let's say Giannis is in the finals. You give him any chance? I mean, can he steal? Is he at the LeBron stage where he can steal a series like that?
He can't steal a series, but he can make it entertaining. And I think that the way the Bucks have been built, they've actually been built to sort of be the anti-Warriors, and primarily because they have so much length, they have so much athleticism and they have, guys who can play multiple positions, can switch. I like what they built, and and Giannis is a guy who can go on a rampage in the playoffs and can put a scare in the opposition. So I like the way they're built. I like their defensive mindset, and I like the fact that they have a coach who actually put together a system that can maximize the talents of everybody. And, obviously Jason Kidd wasn't the right coach for Milwaukee, but he was the right coach for Giannis because he unlocked his game in a way that I'm not sure many coaches would, having him test himself at 5 positions, and especially a point guard. It allowed him to become this incredible Greek freak specimen that we see all the time, who can basically do everything out there but shoot threes.
It's funny talking about Jason Kidd because I was talking to an NBA writer who you and I know. I'm not going to mention him, but he's pretty close. He's pretty close with Jason Kidd. They communicate pretty frequently, and Jason Kidd keeps texting him, asking him what he knows about the Laker job. So I'll just leave it at that. I think that's been something that's been out there for a while. I think LeBron at this stage needs to play for somebody who he considered to be somewhat close to the level that he was at. He's never really had that. I guess Paul Silas is the best player that he ever played for, but I just don't. I'm with you. I don't think Luke's going to survive this thing. I think once they didn't make the trade, I think he's going to get shuffled aside, and Eric Spoelstra is going to be the one guy who survived all of the LeBron, machinations when it comes to coaching.
And you know what? And I don't know if LeBron will ever say it or if he's ever said it, but Spoelstra gets credit to me for being the guy who truly unlocked LeBron and brought about the 2 best seasons that we've seen from him. I think that those back-to-back finals, back-to-back MVPs. I think that was just an incredible run. I mean, LeBron's been awesome his whole career, but those 2 years when he really embraced analytics and embraced his role as shooting threes and figuring out how to develop a post game, I give a lot of credit to the Heat and what they did in that staff and helping him really see his potential and just how great he could be, because we all knew he was just an incredible athlete and he could do so much on the court, but I think he really became a basketball player in Miami. And I give a lot of credit to Spo and Pat Riley and everybody in that Heat organization for opening his eyes to what he could be. And then he went to Cleveland and did some other amazing things. But that back-to-back run after that finals humiliation, what LeBron came back as was just incredible.
Why do you think that LeBron doesn't have respect for almost any coach he's had in his career and has almost always wanted them changed?
It's the curse of being probably the smartest guy that's played the game. I mean, he's like a genius of basketball. I mean, he knows what everybody out there is going to do, what they have done, and he studies the game really hard. He knows every position, how they're supposed to play, what they're supposed to do. And it's a lot, if you don't have a coach that's on that level of intelligence and can't really do anything to challenge him, then it's going to be difficult for him to make that connection. I think that's sort of been his issue for a good part of his career, is that if he doesn't believe or trust you or have confidence that you're giving him information that he doesn't already know, then it's going to be hard for him to buy in. But I think that I like what Pat Riley did. And, when things got a little shaky early on in there, he's like, this is your coach. This is my coach. This is our coach. And you're going to deal with it. And that's what happened. And I don't think there were any regrets from the Heat. And I'm sure LeBron, if he's being real with himself, will say it was the best thing for his career that no change did occur.
Yeah, well, he sounds like Spo all the time now, which is funny to me. I mean, he repeats these Spoisms. He started doing it his first couple of years in Cleveland, and it's just it's funny. Like, he is, I know that Heat fans don't like to acknowledge it, and he doesn't like to acknowledge it, but he's kind of become an embodiment in some ways of Heat culture. Now, not the
absolutely,
not the undermining coach's part or the fit in or fit out stuff on Instagram, or Twitter, but some of the other stuff, the demands that he makes on others are the demands that the Heat made on him. And I just think that hasn't gotten recognized enough. And also, I agree with you. His 2012-2013 season is one of the 5 best seasons in NBA history. What he did during the 27-game winning streak, it's right behind Dwyane Wade's 2008-2009, for which Dwyane should have won the MVP over LeBron. But that's a subject for another day. That's still a sore subject with Heat fans. Michael, we appreciate you taking the time. Enjoy the game up in Philadelphia, and hopefully we'll see you down here for a playoff. I mean, maybe a Philly Miami reprisal or Boston Miami. I'll get a chance to see you then. But thanks again. Again, follow him at. Actually, let me do this. I always forget did you change your @ or are you still Mr. Michael Lee?
I'm still Mr. Michael Lee. Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure because I know the Athletic guys have all stuck that in there somewhere. So, Okay, make sure you follow him at Mr. Michael Lee on Twitter. Also, check out all his work on the Athletic. We do advise you to subscribe to the Athletic. We've got a lot of people down in our market, obviously 6 writers, all of whom have now, except for one, Chandel, our buddy Michael, who can't get up for a podcast with me. But the other 5 have all done podcasts with us, and we'll continue to do them with them over the next year. Talk soon.
Thank you for listening to the Fire Arena podcast. Thank you so much.